Hey again, Bezier here. This is the last part to my 3-part Nuke crash course tutorial, and basically you're here right now. Let's begin. So let's just start with rotoing, and you're going to get introduced to planar tracking as well, because we kind of use the same tool, the roto. For those people who don't know what rotoing is, a quick way to explain it is basically if you wanted to separate foreground from background and you're not using any green screen or blue screen or like anything, any even black screen, and basically you need to just make the outline by yourself with using like rotos. And the shape we use here is like Bezier's, and if you've used like Photoshop, you already know about it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just show you like a quick concept of the roto on this project. And this is like a oneer project. It's called Rosie. I think you can just find it in if you Google it. I'm pretty sure it's online. You can find it somewhere. But at some point, because it was like a oneer, so it was like just one take, at some points they need to cut. I mean, there are like different reasons for cutting. I mean, even if you in the feature films like I don't know 1917 or Birdman, there are places that there are going to be cuts, and there are ways how you can just hide them. And this is one way, because they're like just they're like filming like and they're having like an interior shot, and then they're gonna go like an exterior shot. And sometimes you can use like an iris pull and just when you're just going to different like from like indoor to outdoor. But for different reasons they didn't do that, and maybe I think at this point it's like 7 minutes, so they wanted to just do like at some points they just cut it. So this is like, if I just put it into input, this is basically, these are like 2 shots. So this is they shot it once till he opens the door and they go out, and a second time with the correct exposure and then just going out. And again, the reason might not be the iris pull. It could be like because they wanted to just at some points just make a cut. It could be like the different reasons, like the acting, like it could be cinematography, lighting, whatever. So what I did here is like, it's pretty simple. It's like just add like a roto here, and just and added like an exposure effect and the background, and so it'll match. And then like I added a keyframe, so it feels like it's not perfect, but it's doing its job. And because you see the parallax in the background, like those cars. But I mean, in general, I think it's fine. And this is basically the concept of rotoing. I wanted to just show you like a practical way of using roto. Or you can just, you wanted to separate the background from foreground. I mean, for these parts, for instance, you can use luminance. In some parts to separate like the foreground from background, but some parts it's really hard. So I'll show you. I mean, you can just easily add a roto here, but other places you want to use roto is like maybe you have an effect and you want that effect to be applied to like a certain parts of the of your image. Here's an example. For instance, you want to just remove the reflection of the camera crews. Obviously, if you wanted to just do it in the correct way, you need to just paint it, and you need to at least like recreate the eyes, right? But I mean, one of the simplest way to do that is to add like a blur. We already learned about the filters, right? I'm gonna go like RGB and blur it, but definitely I don't want it to be applied to all the picture. So to do that, I have like a mask input. I'll just type in like tab roto, or the hotkey for it is O, roto. Then I'm going to just connect it to this. So at this point, you'll see that nothing's happening, because when I look at this roto, there is no alpha channel. There is no information yet in here. So I need to make something, right? As soon as you create a roto, you'll see these tools to the left. And by default, the Bezier tool is selected. So you can just either like start like making a shape, or I can just switch to maybe like a ellipse and just make some shapes here. And then as soon as I do this, now I can see the effect has been applied in these region. And if I look at this, I can see the alpha channel here. I mean, you can just play around with the feather and just fall out, but I mean, usually it's I mean, if you want like feather in different parts, you can just press E in different points. I mean, the feathering, it's especially this type of feathering is not that great. I mean, it's like just awful. And it's kind of, usually we use like like a blur on top of a roto, and it blurs it. And then and that's it. I mean, basically that's like I have this roto this at this point. But obviously if I just move around, it's not going to follow. So to how to fix that, this is like basically the concept of rotoing, because if you go and see like even in some movies they use roto technique as the main concept of the movie, like visual concept, like scanner darkly. So they use like mostly roto for all the parts, like to separate them. So sometimes it can be tedious, but here it's not that bad. I'll just go, for instance, I go to maybe another frame, maybe here. And again, like it's already added like a key, like a stopwatch is on in After Effects terms. So now you can just animate stuff. So as soon as I move it around, it's going to just add a keyframe. As you can see, it's like blue. If you want to go to next keyframe, it's easy. You can just alt. You can go left and right, or you can go between the keyframes. Control left and right. It's pretty. I mean, you can just find these here, the hotkeys. But it's pretty cool. I mean, it's like rotoing here. It can be really fast, and I mean, there are like hotkeys. There are ways for you to do rotoing. Again, this app, this Nuke, is his job. So there are like hotkeys. There are ways designed for this process, and definitely it's much faster than obviously you can just roto in After Effects. But the way you can roto here, it's awesome. It's like it's really fast, and you might have the same result, but the way you work is different, and it's much faster here, right? And sometimes even there are like some tools up here as well. This is like AutoKey, and there are like some options, but one of the tools that is really awesome, and again, it's something that you don't have in After Effects, is like, for instance, if you want to just expand this, for instance, roto, and just make it like this, like blur the whole like the whole frame, but it's just happening in this single frame, right? It just grows and shrinks. It's like a pulse. There's a tool for it. So basically, if you just check this ripple edit, and now you see there's like a warning. There's like a red warning around. So if I change this, and usually when you use it, just turn it off and you're done. And now it's applied to all the keyframes. That's amazing. I mean, again, the tools that you have here, like regarding like the advanced tools in visual effects, they're like super fast. They make your workflow super fast. So this is how you can just use roto on an effect. But if you wanted to use like a roto on top of a layer, that's going to be something like this. For instance, I wanted to just roto this, and make sure if you have like alpha channel in the background. For instance, this is like an auto alpha, so it does have alpha channel. Just if you're doing something like this, make sure to replace it. It just overwrites the roto, the alpha channel. So now, for instance, if I just I can just use Luma key here, but I can't do anything here, because again, you'll see that later on we can just combine them. You can just combine like a keyer or a roto, everything, like combine them and have like a final roto, like a combination of like keys and just different parts. And now if I just hit A, I can see that, or I can just hit M. As you can see, I have matte overlay, and it's going to show me this. And you can just play around and start like rotoing and just go keyframe by keyframe. This is input. I need to just put it global. And this is basically it. This is like what you can do with the roto node. But there is something else that you can play with, and it's like planar tracking. You can just either search for planar track here, or you can do the roto as well. So for instance, if I just hit roto and go here and just go to a specific frame, for instance here, let's just go here maybe. And I'm gonna just go and just and you can just turn off the overlay on and off with Q if you don't want to see the rotos and anything. But if it's off, you can use the roto tool. So I just put it on with Q. I just go, maybe I wanted to do some beauty works, for instance. It's just as a demo, I'm just showing it. So something like that. But now I wanted to just use like a planar tracker to just track it because it's not that I don't want it to just add keyframes. You can do that. You can just right click on any roto and just turn it into like a planar tracker. And now I have these options up here, and I can just go, for instance, track backward. I mean, planar tracker it's good. It's, for instance, for this specific task, it's decent. It's good. You don't see much issues, but I mean, sometimes it's really bad, and you need to jump on maybe Mocha Pro and other applications to do your tracking. And you can just add keyframes as well, refine it at some points. And now, and make sure always like you have like your like a planar tracker connected to your background, because you still need those information, right? If you wanted to just continue like 2D tracking. And as you can see, this is not going to have an effect on RGB, but it needs them. But here we don't have anything. Sorry, we don't have anything here RGB. Now, for instance, I just add like a color corrections and add this, and maybe add a blur in between. And now I can just, and when you use this, you can just try to just make sure you put replace in case if you have any other alpha channel. Because before here, if I have any alpha channel, it's gonna have that. It's gonna combine them, and if I do like a color corrections, and you don't put it at replace, it's gonna affect that part. So make sure you do that, and yeah, that's it. I mean, I can just maybe add a little bit of saturation, and maybe just change the color, maybe more magenta, make it warmer, something like that. I'm just exaggerating so you can see the result. So yeah, this is it. This is like the way you can just work with Roto and Planar Tracker, and the concept of rotoing. But when you already have like a blue screen, green screen, this is like a project. This is the same project of as that Stormtrooper, and this is my friend Bismarck. He did like a fantastic job on this ad like doing like a stop motion. If you want to take a look at it, you can see this project as well. If you search, I think, white, it's in my Vimeo channel, and this is like pretty, I mean, it's amazing. It's awesome. You can see him like sitting here, each frame like moving around. So anyway, so you can either have like a green screen, or let me just reformat this for now because it's huge. It's like because we captured it with DSLRs, and I'm gonna just put it at 1920 1080 for now, for the sake of this tutorial. And then, so here we have like a green screen, or here we have like a maybe like a you can use some Luma keys. At this point, you can just use a couple of tools we have here in Nuke. One is like Keylight. You already know about it, right? I mean, you can just use Keylight, and to sample like some colors, because some of the tools you have, they have like a box here that you can just, if you click on it on the color, it turns into like a eyedropper. So to sample like a color picker, to sample like colors, if you control click in any locations in the viewport, you get the information of those pixel of that pixel, the information of the RGB and alpha channel and everything, like hue, saturation, and value. But it's not correct. It's not right to just sample one pixel, because it can be like a noisy pixel, or it can be like grain or whatever. But if you hold Control Shift and drag, it gives you an average of these pixels. And this is great. This is like it gives you the area, and just this X and Y, it's always like start from left, bottom left. It's good to know for expression or Python scripting. But anyway, but the problem here is that if I do this, and I'll try to just sample those areas for this input for this color, if I Control Shift click, let's see what happens. It's like crazy. What's happening? It's like a disco. You're just you feel like you want to dance, but it's actually because it goes in a loop. So basically, this is my output. So every time it just adds the key, so the color here changes, and it goes in a loop and tries and adds that color again to this eyedropper, and it goes crazy. So how to fix this is to add another modifier key to this combination. So I hold down Control Shift Alt, and now it's gonna just freeze it. So it's gonna just look at the input, not it's not refreshing the output and just refreshing the color. It's gonna just lock the input. So I can just select areas I want, and you can just play around with like gain. So again, this is like a crash course. It's nothing like I'm not gonna go deep into each node. So this is one of the nodes. One of the other ones that usually we use is like a IBK, and it creates like a clean background, or if you have a clean background and then you use IBK, the gizmo, and then sometimes you have a better key. And we have another one which is, again, it's kind of useful for core mat, is like primat. I applied here, and this is good for core mat. I mean, I'm gonna just do something like this and just clean background noise. I'll go to alpha channel so I can see some stuff. You can use the gamma here and just see if you have holes, or you can just play with these like and see how this what parts you need to just clean, or maybe foreground noise, something like that. Maybe these, I can just do this. And to be honest, it's not, you never have like, usually it's not like one key that you can just you can control click on this to reset that. There isn't one key for you to say, okay, this is gonna be it. It's usually like multiple keys. You play with them, and for instance, I'm gonna have this as my what is it, the core mat, for instance, and this is going to be for my the edges, and for reflections, for shadows. I mean, everything can be like with the different techniques. And then for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to just quickly merge these. Merge channel is the same as merge, but it's just one channel, because merge can be really heavy if you wanted to use it everywhere. I want to just set into the union, and let's just play around with this background. And usually I don't go too far with these. And yeah, just imagine this is it. This is what you want. So, but the only thing is that the other thing that we usually do is like we separate our main. So we separate our keys and our what is it? The actual file, like the input. So because the input itself, it has some spills, you need to just clean them. And then when you're done with the spills, you can just combine these. You can just copy this to that. So I'm going to just use like a really cool expression. You can use like so many like plugins or gizmos for spill suppressions, but I'm going to show you how even you can just have expressions here inside Nuke. This is like RGB. As you can see, these channels are selected. So this is for each pixel. So for instance, if I go to G and I just put 1, it's going to just fill it up with 1 information for all the pixels. But no, this is not what I want. I'm going to add like an expression. I'm going to say it's like a tickle expression. So I'm going to say if green is bigger than the average of blue and red, so the question mark means if. The question mark asks the question. So if this is correct, then just put the average, whatever the average is. So basically it's going to make it into like a gray tone. So because if RGB they're like close to each other, you wouldn't be seeing any color, right? Any hue, any color, right? But otherwise it's column. Just put G. Don't change G. Just put G. And as soon as I do this, this is what it's going to give me. So it's going to change some parts as well. Again, it's like a quick way. There are like tools as well, or you can maybe sometimes you have to just add masks to your spill suppressions process. But I think it's like mostly like it's a reflective surface, so you can even this could be the spill. We have spill here for sure. But it's like maybe changing color too much. But I mean, in general, it's fine for the purpose of this tutorial. Then I'm going to just use like a copy node, use the background as RGB and alpha channel from here. So here I don't have alpha channel. I have alpha channel here. Then I'm going to just copy this here. And for the sake of this tutorial, let me just add another channel merge and add like a mask, just so we can at least have one frame. You can disable nodes, by the way, by hitting D. At least one frame, which is a little bit decent. It's not like I had like a garbage mat. And so yeah, that's it. So and now this is like what is it? What was that file that we have, the elephants? This is like unpremult. This is not pre-malted yet. And I wanted to, so if I just put it up here, you're gonna see it's gonna look weird because I still have like a stuff to the sides. But I'm gonna just say pre-malt, and it's gonna just pre-malt it. And now we have this. And for this, just before pre-malting, I'm gonna just quickly just add like a grade so it matches like at least the temperature, the whites with oops, maybe something from the here we go. Yeah, so it's not bad. So I mean, again, I'm not comping this. It's like the noise, focus, everything. So basically that's it. That's like if you wanted to do like a green screen or Luma as well. We have like something. There are like so many tools you can just play with them. Hue here, Luma here. But I mean, this is like one of them that if you don't have alpha channel here, but as soon as you apply like a keyer, it's gonna just fill the alpha channel with this Luma key. You can change it into red keyer for different channels, green keyer, blue keyer, but red screen, green screen, blue screen is for if you wanted to just do the color like this. This is green screen, but keyer means like different channels. So sometimes you can just go to different channels and see which one is better. For instance, here maybe red channel is better than the Luma. There's better contrast maybe. You can just check the contrast ratio, but I'm going to go to red keyer maybe, and then I'm going to just go maybe up until I have this in the alpha channel, like I have filled it, and then I'm going to just go something like that. So this is, I mean, this is usually with a keyer, it's like a start, and then you can just add more, like maybe I can just add really quick Roto. And again, I'm not going to go frame by frame keyframing it, but I think you already know that I can just easily Roto this. But the keyer, the good thing about it is that usually you don't need to add keyframes. Sometimes you have to. Maybe you need to add like keyframes to the keyer. Sometimes maybe you have to. But usually that's the Roto that's a little bit tedious. But I'm going to just add like a little bit of like feather in different parts. The hotkey for it is E. And that's it. That's my key or Roto, and then I can just like add a pre-malt, or I'll just put, I have like a hotkey for it, assigned hotkey for it, or pre-malt. So if I do this, then I can just put it on top of this weird picture that I found, reformat. It's like I don't know, is it like a shooting star? Is it like a meteor? What is it? It looks like aliens are coming as well. So I do this, and it looks beautiful. I just add like a maybe. So I don't do on pre-malt or pre-malt here because I don't have an alpha channel. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to do always like doing like pre-malt on pre-malt, because this is just a background. I'm not worried about anything regarding the alpha channel. So let's just maybe play with the offs, gamma, maybe midtones, maybe something like that. Again, it's like just for the sake of this. I mean, I don't want to just change the skin tones, so maybe this is a little bit green. I don't know. It feels like it's a little bit green. Maybe something like that. Yeah, usually you get stuff from digital cameras. It's kind of there's a green tint. So yeah, I think that's it. That's like if you wanted to just combine them, like use Luma key or keying. And so let's just go into 2D tracking. You might already know the concept, but it's like basically like just tracking pixels. The way we did it with Roto here, with like planar tracking, but this is just some pixels, some patterns, and it's going to output like either translate rotation, or translate rotation like scale, or even corner pin. To do that, I'm going to just insert like a tracker node, and this is the way it works. As soon as you import like a tracker node, you're going to see like a bunch of options up here, so you can just track forward, backward, but you need to add a tracker first. To do that, I'm going to just maybe do like a tracker maybe here. I'm going to just, instead of just clicking this, I'm going to hold down like Control Alt and then just click. It's going to just create a track. I want to just track these 2 points because I wanted to just have like rotation and scale as well. So to do that, you need 2 points. I'm going to add another one here as well. And this is basically the pattern, and this is like the search area. This is not a crazy, she's not moving like crazy, so I'm going to just make it a little bit smaller. And I'm in the middle of here. I can track backward first. To do that, there are like you can either use these keys here, these tools here, or you can just use the hotkeys for sure. It's like Z, X, C, V. If you hover over these, you'll see these. So Z is going to be obviously the tracking backward, and then C is going to be tracking backward just 1 frame, and then X. And C is 1 frame forward, and V is forward, like tracking forward. So what I'm going to do is like just make sure you select all your trackers if you want multiple trackers to just track them, and then I just hit Z, and then I'm going to just hit V as well. Sorry, it's hard to see the keyboard because of this microphone. So this is it. This is like the way you can track, and you can just have multiple trackers and you can just average them, and it's awesome. It's like you have like so much, you have access to everything. You can even apply like each tracker to a point of a roto. This is like how deep you can just go with these informations. And that's why I usually just say like After Effects is for like to generate pixels, but Nuke is to manipulate pixels. So you can just use this, and you can just play with these options, and this is going to show you the errors. You can just add keyframes. If I just go here, there's no keyframes, but you can just add multiple keyframes and just track based on those keyframes because your pattern is changing, and fix these errors. So that like so much stuff in the tracking area, but for now I think this is fine, and this is going to be your information. So this is going to be your translate. But if I just hit these, like check these as well, just say I want to just do like a translate and scale as well. Why can't I click? It's going to give me these as well, right? So I have these information. Now, how can I apply it? So there are like 3 ways to apply like a tracker. One is like to link it to another like object in your scene. For instance, I have a roto, and I want to track like the root, the translate of this root layer to that point. And this is basically how you can just organize your stuff. Like there's like a root layer, but you can just, apart from creating rotos, you can create layers as well. And this is basically for organizing your stuff. But I'm going to just track everything based on this, like track the layer, like the top layer. To do that, either you can just do like if you have like multiple like panels active, you can see everything. And I'm going to just use like a floating panel, so I can just see them simultaneously. But maybe you're just having like 10 or 2 or whatever, and you can just see both of them. And then I can select one, like the destination. It doesn't matter, I mean, which one is top and which one is bottom. But I select this, I have this translate, so I can just easily control, click and hold and just put it here. That's easy how you can just use. And this is like an expression. If I just press equal here, you see it's kind of it's getting information from tracker 1 to translate. You don't need this parent, to be honest. This is going to work as well. This is one way. Or maybe I can just even type in, I know what is it? Let's do this for here. I know the name of the node, tracker 1, rotate. That's it. It's going to just link it. And you see this line that you can just see. And you can just hide these as well with Alt-E if you get overwhelmed. Like they're like you just wanted to see the main connections. And there's another thing. We have like what is it? Alt-K that clones stuff that they they share parameters, and it shows a link between them as well. You can just hide them like with Alt-E if you want. And you see this expression as well. So this has expression. This is one way. And another way, let me just delete it, that I'm kind of used to it because I'm using one panel at a time, is that I just go to the layer and just right click and just go and link to translate. That's it. And yeah, you can just link translate, but you can't do that for rotation. So, and I'm gonna just do this. I mean, I don't need to copy it, to be honest. So I'm gonna just say rotate. I know the name, right? And tracker 1 scale. So this is linked, right? And now if I just do whatever I did, maybe I just copy that. Put it here. Just put it here. Just put it here and just maybe add like a little bit of blur. And now usually try to just apply the tracking, just link it first and then just start your roto, because sometimes roto might move around. And you can just set the reference point as well. I'm going to show you when I'm stabilizing this, but this is like usually it gets the reference point from the beginning, right? I mean, you'll see what does that even mean. But I mean, you might need to just fix your roto at some points. But I mean, in general, I mean, it's okay. So this is one way of using tracker. The other way of using tracker, I'm going to just copy and paste it here, is to use it as a transform node, right? I mean, it can turn into a transform node. If you go to transform tab, you can just change its behavior. And this time I'm going to just do is stabilize. And even I can just change the reference frame as well. I wanted to just stabilize based on this frame. So it's going to just reset everything based on this frame. And now if I zoom out, you'll see, I mean, everything else is just moving around. I think, was it like the Beats commercial? I think you can just use this technique to just stabilize something in the middle of the frame, and or you can match move, whatever. But there's another way of using the transform, is to I'm not going to use this, put it none. You can do like export. So if you have 4 trackers, you can export corner pin for sure, but you can just export it as a stabilize, match move, or stabilize, baked, and match move. The difference is that if I just say stabilize, it creates a transfer node. It acts the same as this, like when we used it, right? But it's linked. If I update the tracking data, it's going to update it. But if it's baked, it's going to be gone. I mean, it depends. Sometimes you have like multiple multiple reference frames. You don't want to duplicate this. You create baked and change the reference frame and just make a new one. So this might be why you're using baked. And actually, I'm going to just scale this up as well. And as you can see, I'm just putting the transform nodes on top of each other. I'm not going to just break them. So this is how you can just 2D track, and the way you can just use it different ways. Now we are getting into exciting stuff, which is 3D tracking, or camera tracking, or match move, or whatever you want to call it. And upon learning about this concept, you'll learn about 3D space as well. So let's just start with this shot that I got from like a rooftop of a parking, and I'm gonna just do like a tracking. I have some markers here. These are basically for as references. Later on, you'll see that in point cloud they will help you to orient your stuff, but I mean, this does have enough texture. In some cases, you don't even need markers unless it's like green screen or blue screen. Now I'm gonna add like a camera tracker node. So let's do this. So this is the camera tracker, and from this point on, you'll see that we're gonna just jump into 3D space by clicking tab a lot. So and from this point on, you'll see that we can just see some elements, like 3D elements, and especially if your nodes have like rounded corners. So those are like 3D nodes. And I'm gonna just go and try to just maybe say I want to just do like a 50 frames, and I can just use a mask for this because I don't want to waste my features on the sky, because obviously you can track points up there. It's not going to give you anything. It's just going to waste your trackers. So I'm going to just use mask alpha, and it's going to be a free camera, unknown lens. I don't know what it was. I don't remember actually. It was like a Sony FS700, but if you know your camera, you can just put the film back size, but I'm going to put it like this. And you'll see that even with some unknown parameters, it's going to give you a decent track. But if you have more information about your camera, that's going to be perfect. And I'm going to just jump onto the settings, and I'm going to show you the features. So these are the features, preview features. By default, it's 150, which is weird. It's from old times. I think it's from like PAL or NTSC times. And obviously always you need to just increase this and just decrease the detection threshold maybe when you increase that number. And then I'm going to go back here, and I think we're set to go. Let's just track this and see how it goes. As you can see, my there's like a motion in the, so basically you need to move your camera. You just imagine the camera is like a point. You need to just move in space if you want to have a good tracking data, because if you're just pan and tilting, it's like a nodal point, like a nodal motions. It's gonna, I mean, it's hard. It's gonna give you some information, but I mean, basically there is no parallax. And as you can see, these are like sliding. Usually we have like issues with these like parallel lines, like straight lines. It's gonna just slide. It's gonna give me some error here. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, just move around if you want to just have information. Like, you need parallax, and it's gonna give you so much information instead of just pan and tilt, because you can just 2D track that, apart from the lens distortion, of course. So let's just I have this. Let's just solve it and see how much error I'll get. I think I'm gonna just get some red errors up here, or maybe here. Who knows? Okay, so I mean, some of these are because it's to the corner, but usually I have good enough information up here. But you can just always go to auto tracks and just check the errors, and just I'm not gonna go through everything, but let's just delete rejected all the red ones, and maybe I can just, there's no orange ones. It's fine. You can play around with the threshold, but I'm gonna just update solve once, so you can see, you can just fine tune your you can always fine tune your tracking data. It's much better. This is the error that I get, and if you go back and forth, you might get better result. But this is fine. So if I just press tab here, it gives me a point cloud. It shows me like a point cloud, and the way you orient inside the 3D space is almost the same as 2D. So middle mouse pan and tilt, zoom in, zoom out, like with clicking here as well. But it's just the orientation, which is like control and hold, just click and just drag. Control and drag, it's going to just rotate and orient your scene. I go to right side, and just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to just quickly try to orient my scene and try to just make it a little bit like correct. It just sits correct in my environment. So a little bit of lag, maybe like something like that. This is too much, and just go, oops, go in Y. I think that's fine. It's decent. So I go back, and I have my like solved camera. So if you came from After Effects, it's easy. You can just start creating stuff. If you click nodes here and just create ground plane, you can just reset it. But it's sometimes I just create like a what is it, like a card. But let's just, for now, let's just create a camera, which I'm going to show you how you can just have a better point cloud, because this is not great, the point cloud. This is not detailed enough. But if I just go here, and first of all, I want to export, I'm going to start exporting with just the camera, but later on I'm going to just do the scene and make sure it's linked. If you update it, it's going to just update the camera. I'm going to just make, let's just add a frame range first, because I think my input is 150. Just change it into 50, and then I'm going to just add like a point cloud generator. And basically what it does is, like, based on an input of a camera and based on your 2D image, it's gonna just analyze the sequence, add some keyframes. You can just manually add keyframes as well, and then track like the pixels. And if your movement is crazy, it's gonna add more keyframes, obviously, but that's pretty much the idea. So if I just do this, you'll see that I'll get a better, usually I get a better, more detailed result. You can just play around with the what is the point separation and everything, but you see, this is what I'm getting, and this is pretty much, it's much better than this. Let me just close this and just look at this. Oops, I need to double click on it. It's much better than this, right? This is like more detailed, like it's and the way you see in 3D space is like either you have something active in here or you're looking at it with your viewer. And this is much better, right? So why I'm doing this is that you can even make mesh out of this. This is just a quick tip that I'm going to show you and show you how powerful, apart from the part that we talked about, the rotos and all points tracking, 2D tracking, you can just apply 2D tracking data to the rotos and all those advanced tools that we had here, back there. And now we have like so much control over like in 3D space, unlike After Effects, without using any plugins. No Elements 3D, nothing. So what I'm going to do is that maybe I can just go to groups and you can just even select like vertices here, for instance, here. And maybe I can just do something like that, or even just go crazy. Let's just go crazy and just create these. Because this is, maybe it's like a boring mesh. This is like top of the rooftop, like the part of the parking. But if just imagine you have like a mountain, just a really like an organic, really mesh. But I'm gonna just do like create group out of these, or you can soft select them as well. I'll show you soft selections as well quickly. And then I'm gonna just make bake selected groups to mesh and see what happens. It gives me a mesh. So to look at the camera and the mesh together, I'm going to just create a scene, or let's just look at it just by itself. This is what I get, and this is this is amazing, right? I mean, when you have like, you can do something, or even you can just play around. You can just edit mesh inside Nuke. If I just say edit geo, I can just select like vertices and even apply like a soft selections. And if your soft selections is like huge or small, you can press S in your viewer and just go to 3D and just play around with the with this fallout curve that it's selecting. For instance, here is like an S curve. So if I just select this and I just play with this, it's going to just increase, decrease, and I can just imagine I can just easily play around. I can just edit mesh here inside Nuke. I think it happened to me a couple of times that I think one occasion I had like a LiDAR information from a 3D department, and we were like just projecting stuff, and we wanted to just change it a little bit, so we didn't have to go back to Maya and do it. We did it inside Nuke, and you can just easily just with modifiers. If I hold down Control, I can just play with the rotation, or if I just hold down Control Shift, I can just play with the scale, and obviously different like directions. And this is amazing. I mean, you can just do, and this is pretty fast. And you can even just import like files, like 3D files. So let me just create, instead of a camera, I'm going to create like a scene so you can just see a render. So by default, it's going to just create like a lens distortion, like a node. It's going to undistort it, like based on the motions of the pixels. So we can just comp stuff and distort it again. But this is like, let's just look at the point cloud here. Let's just look at the, what is it? The point cloud, maybe. I don't know. It's better. It looks better. And if I just delete the background, and you can see like this is my point cloud. And it's like you can just even have like 3D shapes inside inside your scene. I just downloaded this high poly of a 3D model of I think it's like a Mercedes Z3, and if I look at it, it's pretty like it's a heavy model, right? But you see how fast it reloads it, and we have like ray render that's like really great. This is like scanline render I'm using, but ray render is, you can just have really complicated geos with UVs and just apply shaders. I'm going to just actually apply a shader to this model that I've got, and to read in anything, you press R, right? And it's like it's smart. Nuke is smart. It checks the type of file you're selecting, and it's going to just make the appropriate read for that specific file. If it's like a WAV file, it's going to give you a audio read. If it's like 3D, it's going to be read geo. But I mean, you can just type in read geo as well and just import it by yourself. So I'm going to just put it inside my scene, and scene in a way it's like a merge node for 3D objects. and then you can just add them all together and just render it. I can just add light. Let me just add a couple of things here. I have the camera, I have the light, and then I'm going to just go here, and as you can see, I have this, and this was like, I think like a huge, the size was like huge, and when you get it, it's like, oh my god, this is so huge. And what you can do is that you can just, whatever you're selecting, you can just press F here and just fit it and see it, and then you can just go play around. I'm going to just go back to my scene and just put it back into whatever it was, and press F. I can see this, and let me just, first of all, just disable this. So I mean, and you have like options here to disable like the lighting, like a default lighting, but I mean, I think I need to apply like a shader to this. So let's just apply like a funk maybe shader, and now node selected, it was like just showing the vertices, and now if I apply my light, you can see this in the scene. If I apply my light, and maybe I put my light up here, maybe to the, not too close, but somewhat close, so it'll give us some shades, different shades of gray. So let's just do this. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, this is like, sometimes you might need, you want to just bring in like a geo. To be honest, for objects that are like far away, like cars, choppers, or planes, it's great. I mean, not too far, but still not too close. But I mean, the ray render is perfect. I mean, and you can have shadows. You can have like all the objects. They have like different options. Like you can have like cast shadows and receive shadows for the ground. And I mean, there are like so many options. I mean, basically most of the options the basic 3D applications have. And if this UV is set correctly, you can just apply the UV instead of this fong, the image. And yeah, that's basically the 3D space and 3D environment, and how we can just even generate and mesh and project stuff. And this is pretty heavy. And the last thing I'm going to just mention is that what if you get your CG renders like rendered from like a 3D department, and it's not like just you don't want to just bring in like a heavy 3D geo. So this is basically like this is again from my project, the short film, and this is not the final result, like the final render, but it's like a whip. And I just prepped this for this tutorial, so we can see at least like a multi-channel EXR. So I can show you at least if you get something from a CG department, you can just easily shuffle through the different layers. So usually when you get like a multi-channel EXR, they're like different channels, but here in Nuke we call them layers. As you can see, I have like RGBA, but I have an icon. This is like other layers. And if I look at this and go to just the viewing, like this is just to change the view. If I go here, I'll see like a couple of more like layers. Again, these are called layers in Nuke, not channels, but all RGB are called channels. For instance, I go to diffuse. This is my diffuse layer, spec layer. It can get really complicated. This is pretty actually straightforward and easy code. And some of these you can see crypto, but I mean, you need crypto now to just see different parts. But I mean, this is just to view them, right? But how you can just separate them, how you can just shuffle them inside the node graph. So there's a node called shuffle, which you use a lot. I mean, especially when comping in CG. And this is the new look. So the new look is, it's easy to get. It's pretty easy to understand. But the old look, it was a little bit, for some people who are just getting into this shuffling concept, it was a little bit hard to understand. So I'm going to just quickly explain that the old version, and you'll see the new version is much easier. So the old version is like that. It's like just we have output here and we have input here. And to understand it better, I'll go backwards. So I'm going to say, for instance, the output alpha that's going to come out of this shuffle node, we go back and we just hit this X, and then it means go up. When you hit an X, you go up, and that's it. For blue, I go back and I hit this X and I go up. The reason I say backward, because if you fill it with black or white, it's gonna hit that that X part, and it goes up, and it just fills your alpha channel with 1, or your blue channel with 1 or 0, whatever. But this new look, as you can see, it's much easier to understand. This is like input, this is output. I can just disconnect these, or I can just put blue into the alpha channel. So now the blue is like black, like it's empty. I can just put this here. It's like it's much visually, it's easier to understand. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna just say, so instead of RGB, this is boring. This is just doing like RGBA, RGBA. Nothing's being changed. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna just say, put diffuse layer, and just put it into the RGBA, and it's gonna just do that. So now we were like visually looking at that, but now it's like we are just changing it inside the node graph. And the other thing is that when you're like just when you usually get like other layers, they don't contain the alpha channel. So to do that, I'm going to just get another input. To be honest, I can just put it into alpha just like that, and or RGBA, it doesn't matter. And I just put this into the alpha. So I'm going to just say, get the alpha channel from input and put it in the alpha channel of the output. Actually, to make it less complicated, I'm going to do this. So if I look at it, I have the alpha channel here, and I have preserved it right in the this shuffle node. And what I'm going to do is that, so this is the concept of like shuffling between channels, is like just you need to just separate them and just add them together. I'm going to just do the same thing with spec. I'm going to do the same thing with where is it? Spec, and I think code. I think this is, again, this is like a pretty simple, I just made this simple out of my project, so it wouldn't get too crazy. So now I need to just merge these together. So I can just say, put this on top of this, but the operation I want to choose is add them together, which is plus. You can just do like multiple merge with one node. Like I can just add A2, A3, but it's better to have them separate, because sometimes you want to just play around with the mix, for instance. I want to just play around with the mix of this or whatever. But there is something going on here, something which is a little bit tricky, and it's because so these are getting added together, but you remember we were like talking about the pre-mult and on-pre-mult, so the edges might get a little bit weird, and the other thing is that you might so one of the reasons we separate these is to add grades. So I wanted to just grade this, a grade like a specific location or whatever. I want to work on this. I want to just, that's why we separate passes, right? It's otherwise what's the point? And to do that, we need to just do on-pre-mult. So make sure you have the on-pre-mult that we learned about it in the past lessons, and then grade it, and then plus it, and then we can just pre-mult it. But the other thing is that it's going to just add the alpha channel to the edges. Like if I just look at the edges, it's going to get changed. So it's gonna, so this is my input and this is my output. As you can see, it's getting doubled and tripled. So it's because it's outputting the alpha channel here. I'm going to just uncheck these, and then 1 and 2. I'm going to disable these grades for now. I think it's clamping like blacks or something. Yeah, now they're fine. But yeah, as you can see, I mean, sometimes your grade might affect because they have like clamp on, I think. So your grade might affect the alpha channel. Now they're like the same. So to be safe, you can just in the end even add like a copy and just add a copy from the input. So the alpha channel is not changed. This is like a perfect setup for like if you wanted to just do like shuffling through different passes of a beauty render. And so this is really simple, but it can get really complicated. And we have like lighting passes, lighting groups. We have like position pass, normal pass, UV pass, motion pass. And there are like so many tools that you can just play with them and just work with this. And you'll see that this workflow is phenomena. And this is super fast, like playing with different passes of multi-channel EXR instead of just going inside After Effects doing so. And yeah, that's it. I mean, this is like basically what my crash course for this. But to finish it, I'm gonna just show you, because for now, till now, you're like wondering what am I supposed to do with audio. So this is how it works. It's like just, I mean, usually we are just worried about visuals. So we render this and it gets edited in an application like Flame or Nuke Studio, and over there, if you want to just deliver it, you're worried about audio. But in case if you are wondering like how can I just play something like a track or something, you can just do like this is like a sample I found. If you read like a waveform, not MP3, it doesn't accept MP3, and then you can just either again, you can just write this. So this is the this is how we can just export. You can just set up your for instance, I mean, I'm not going to render it, but I'm just saying, I mean, for instance, I'm going to just say this is the render. I believe I have a folder called renders back here. Render maybe V2, I don't know, something like that. And as soon as I press like if you add the format, like it's going to just pick it up in the name, and you can just set the color space, and then you just hit render, and it's going to just render those frames. But still, this is like a sequence, or you can just go MOV. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's going to be like this. But we usually go with sequences, because MOVs are like, if you're like rendering for someone else to pick it up, it's like just if you have like an MOV file, it's gonna basically to load it, it needs to unpack it and just go to that specific frame. That's why we usually in visual effects we use with sequences, apart from CG renders being sequences. I mean, even we transcode the background in sequences. Anyway, I'm talking a lot. So you see, you can just check the codec, but I mean, if you wanted to just listen to it as like a preview, that we have like two options here. One is like a flipbook, and one is like a capture. Capture gets like all the information, even 3D information, all the overlays. But flipbook, if you press it, you can just go my viewer, my range, and then I'm gonna just put an audio and make sure you have like you cached it here. Because it checks your buffer. So if I cache this, and hopefully you will be able to listen to this. Let's see. I'll just go here, flipbook, audio, okay. And it's gonna just use your cache, and it's gonna just combine it, and it's gonna just put it into a viewer. And you can just, I mean, sometimes you can just export these as well, but it doesn't matter at this point. You can just maybe write it. But as a preview, if you want to just play around with audio, this is the way. I hope you can hear it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's like we went through all the general tools, advanced tools, and hopefully it was something informative. If you're like a beginner to maybe, who knows, maybe some advanced users might learn something from these advanced tools. So thanks again for being here. Oh my God, I talked a lot. And this is going to be interesting. And I can't wait for your feedback. And please leave a comment below, or if you have any questions, or just leave your comment below, leave your feedback. I would really appreciate it. And thanks again for being here. Hope to see you next time.